Good morning, everyone. My name is Chris Austin, and I'm proud to be the host of Entrepreneurs Hour right here on WRFR 93.3. Now, our show is dedicated, and this is something that I would just say is so important about this show. This is just like our mission at the Rock Coast Entrepreneurs. We're here to be a resource for both new, aspiring, existing, struggling, successful entrepreneurs to be able to learn from one another, but also to the support partners that we have in our community. And it's such an important thing that we do in this radio show. I'm so proud to be your host. A little bit about me. I'm the president of RDM Managed Services right in Rockport. I'm also the president of the Rock Coast Entrepreneurs. And I'm very, very excited about this week's guest, Greg Soutiea. And Greg has been a close friend and a person that I know for several years, and I'm just really excited to have him on the show today. Greg is with the Craignair Inn, also the very, very, very. I guess it'd be great for us to actually have the mic on this entire time, so my apologies, everyone. My name is Chris Austin. I'm the host of Entrepreneurs Hour. Wow, that is a great start to this Tuesday. But either way, so I'm the host. I'm the president of RDM Managed Services and also the president of the Rock Coast Entrepreneurs. This show is on 93.3 WRFR. I can't thank the volunteers and the supporters and the sponsors of this radio station for us to be able to have this show. It is so important for us to be out here, to be able to talk to entrepreneurs and the people who support them in our community and give them the resources to be successful. We hope that we inspire you. We hope that we help you in your journey. And we hope that you are getting involved in your community to be able to help entrepreneurs if you're not one. So I have a great guest today, a great friend of mine, Greg Soutiea with the Causeway Restaurant as well as the Craignair Inn. Welcome to the show, Greg.
Thanks, Chris. I'm happy to be here. Appreciate you having me on.
And I apologize to the listeners again for our delay there. I was talking to a empty mic, but the show is it's very unique this week because we decided to have just one person on the show because you have a lot to talk about, and I'm just really excited about some of the things you're going to share. But first, let's have the listeners and our viewers learn a little bit about you.
Yeah, so my wife Lauren and I own the Craignair Inn 16-room hotel and the Causeway Restaurant, a 95-seat restaurant just south of Rockland here. We are open year-round for the hotel and the restaurant, and we've been there about 6 years.
And it's amazing. And I would just say it's being that, I live in the St. George Peninsula, and I just see, and it's just I would just say it has been so impressive what you and Lauren have done with that space. I mean, it was a great little spot, but it was never like on the radar like it is. And I can't wait to get deeper into that. But first, the first segment that we want to always get into is learn a little bit about your journey. Because not everyone just wakes up one day and says, I want to become an entrepreneur. There's something that really, inspired you to become an entrepreneur. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that journey. I know that you come from the Boston market. You relocated to this beautiful state, which is great. And in Boston, in that area, you did real estate management. And so I'd like to talk about that transition from doing real estate management to owning and running the Craignair Inn and then obviously creating the Causeway.
Yeah, so skipping back a little bit, I've got degrees in advertising and marketing, and pretty much right out of university started working for a property management firm where I was working and managing a 300-unit building in Kansas City, Missouri, before I moved up to the Boston area. Continued in retail management for a minute and then got back to the property management where I was doing that for a little over 10 years. Managing commercial real estate and high-end luxury condominiums around the downtown Boston area. It was an interesting job. It was always something different. It was nice not to be at my desk all the time, bouncing around, working on multi-million-dollar renovations and projects around the city, kind of putting my stamp on some brick facades and some different roofing and major projects around the city that kind of shaped those buildings. It was pretty fun. But property management is not known as it's a little bit of a negative industry, especially after the years. You've got nobody really ever picks up the phone to call their landlord or their property manager and tell them how good the plowing guy did today, or that the lawn looks nice, the lawn guy did a nice job, or their concierge desk really helped somebody out today. No, it's quite the opposite. So after over a decade of pretty much every phone call and email coming in being negative, it starts to wear on you.
Sure, I bet it does.
So Lauren and I had a little kind of aha moment years ago when we were traveling through Scotland. We were staying out in Galway at this little B&B, 3 or 4 rooms, and chatting with this owner who had transformed her family home that she grew up into a small bed and breakfast that was beautiful, right on the water. And the one thing they'll never forget that she said is everybody who comes in to stay with her is always in a good mood. They're always on vacation. They're always happy. Things may get a little bumpy, something may go wrong now and then, but ultimately people are on vacation and they're willing to kind of roll with the punches and are generally happy to be there. So that kind of struck a chord for where I was at and kind of sent Lauren and I on a little journey to start exploring the idea.
Why Maine? Like what was the big, especially St. George down this peninsula, which I think is still almost like a secret in the state. Obviously there's been a lot of great things like your restaurant and many others that are really drawing people to the peninsula, but what drew you to this region?
Well, Lauren and I got married in Portland. We used to travel around Maine quite a bit from the Boston area, though admittedly never to this Camden, Rockland, Mid-Coast area. But just really, really loved it up here. We wanted to find a property that was on the coast of Maine, or ideally in the mountains, New Hampshire and Vermont. So we looked at probably about 20 different properties around New England before stumbling upon the Craignair there, which was at the time a little bit sleepy and needed some love, so we could see a lot of potential there. And after visiting the property for less than 24 hours, we had an offer in the next day.
That's awesome. Now, and I know that we'll get into some of the accolades and the awards that you and Lauren have received, but so you buy the Craignair, and then you had this vision, both of you had this vision, and then you started working on this vision, and it spun up really quickly. Like, it was impactful. So you started creating jobs in the peninsula. So how many people do you employ there?
Right now we've got about 20 people on that will have year-round jobs with us. In the summer, we peaked at almost 50 employees this summer.
50 employees. That's a lot to manage for 2 people.
We're very fortunate to have an executive chef, Gil, who is wonderful with his team, takes full ownership of the kitchen and really runs that staff for us. Lauren kind of manages a little more of the hotel side, really takes care of the guest experience, and our housekeeping team, where a lot of times where I've got a little more eye on the front of house during restaurant service, and making sure the in-restaurant experience is great for our guests.
Right. And just talking about that, so you started doing a lot of renovations and making the place. I mean, you've done an amazing job with the renovations. You added the back deck, which expanded your footprint. And I mean, how much bigger did you expand when you added that beautiful covered deck?
We went from 55 seats to 90 seats in the restaurant, and crazy. About 75 of those we can seat year round.
Yeah. So you brought those on, and then, I mean, you're doing all these things, and then you have the Causeway restaurant, and I mean, people were starting to talk. Like, you had some amazing food that was coming out, and very, very talented staff members, friendly service, and then you add like an ice cream booth on the side too. Is that still going? Is that something that what is called the Clark Bar?
Clark Bar, yeah. So we do that every Sunday. We stay open from 10 in the morning till 8 at night. So during the daytime, we've got a little kind of cocktail and ice cream window. we won't be selling too much ice cream for the rest of the season, but it's just, we try to think of unique and creative ways to bring people down, not only to us, but down the peninsula to experience Clark Island, which is a beautiful nature preserve that the Maine Coast Heritage Trust oversees next to us. So it's a really good opportunity to get people outside and get people hanging out on the lawn and just kind of enjoying a spot that we like to have for the community that people can gather and relax.
And I would just say, being that my wife and I and our family have been there, our family, our friends, all of our circle that we have, and everyone absolutely adores that view on the lawn. And you got the fire pit. You've had some amazing experiences this year with the Northern Lights. Like, it is the perfect place to stay. And I think you've created this huge, this beautiful environment as well. And I know the environment means a lot to you and Lauren. And like I said, we're going to talk about some of your accolades, but you've also done some environmental impacts, like some of the things that you've done, upgrades to the inn and to the restaurants. Can you tell us a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, certainly. Over the last 5 years, we've spent a little over $1 million in renovations and upgrades to the property, and everything we've done, we've really tried to keep an eye towards the future. All 3 septic systems we've done are incredibly efficient, very low impact on the environment. We put in a new high efficiency propane boiler a couple of years ago that incredibly reduced our dependency on oil. We've got 48 solar panels on the roof and 4 Powerwall batteries that can not only supplement our energy use and utilize that instead of the grid. Covers about 75% of our electric over the course of a year, and gives our guests and us an opportunity, if there is a storm, which we do lose power down the peninsula now and then, to continue to function and have the restaurant open for guests and not have to close the hotel or restaurant.
Wow. So we're transition a little bit to the next segment. And I mean, Greg, listen, I know that you and Lauren have a lot on your plate. All right, 50 employees is no joke. That is a lot to manage. Okay, I mean, I would say that's got to be one of the top employers on the peninsula, and that's really impressive. But what's more impressive is your community involvement. And in the past several weeks, we've been talking about it's in the world of being an entrepreneur. It is a very lonely place, and while you have your partner with you, with Lauren, which is amazing. I'm sure that helps. But still, you have to be able to get outside of that and get involved in your community, and you're doing that. So I would love to talk a little bit about your involvement in the community with advocacy, especially with your role with the Penn Bay Chamber. I'm proudly served with you on the board. You are the chair of the advocacy committee. You do some incredible work with that committee, and I'm proud to be on that committee with you as well. But you're the leader of that committee, and it truly shows. You're also on the housing committee in St. George. I know that you also do things like very active with cutting wood as well for the community as well, which we'll get into that. You also are on the board, or on the advocacy committee for the Hospitality Maine as well. And I know that you and I have made some travel up to the State House as well, and to really advocate for our region, but also to be involved, to understand and to really understand what's happening in our state as well. So that's a lot to unpack. So I'll let you kind of take it where you want, but let's talk about all those things that you're doing in your community.
Yeah, I think now and in the last couple of years, we've been really fortunate, as you mentioned, with the staffing that we have. I've got some great team leaders in Megan and Jace that can make sure the restaurant's running nice and smoothly if I'm not there. So I've been able to, the last couple of years, step a little bit outside of the building. Instead of being there 100+ hours a week, making sure that everything is going perfectly, I'm now able to, with the support of our team there, be able to be a little more involved in the community and some the St. George Housing Committee and Budget Committee and a couple other things down there. And like you mentioned, the CDC is a great organization. Community Development Corporation in St. George that does a lot of great programs, such as our town wood bank. But yeah, it's been, circling back to the advocacy part, it's been really interesting the last few years as I started getting involved with Hospitality Maine a few years ago on their advocacy committee, learning a lot from Greg Dougal, who's the former chair of government relations, and then now the last couple of years, Nate Cloutier, very influential, and I've learned a lot from them about how to advocate, how to research, how to support small businesses, hospitality businesses, and those in the community that might be impacted positively or negatively by upcoming legislation. So it's been great to try and get that movement engaged a little bit more with our local Chamber of Commerce, get some voices in that conversation so that as the Chamber, we can also advocate for the small businesses that we support in the area.
Right. And that's so important to note, because if we like it or not, the Chamber is, the perception in our community at times is that we are a tourism bureau. We are here to promote tourism. Listen, we're not going to deny it. We love the tourists because it helps drive our economy. That's really important. But the Chamber does so much more. And this is one of those things. So that advocacy is so important, and be able to fight for its membership, and there's just so much that's happening. So let's, continue. Let's talk more about this.
I think, we're in between sessions right now, so there's some rulemaking on a couple of policies that are out there, but ultimately we won't start until after the election, January, the next session, where usually average, 1,500 to 2,000 bills are come up every session. So that's a lot for people to go through. It's a lot for myself to kind of keep track of, and any other industry organization. The Maine State Chamber does a really great job of trying to keep track of a lot of things that are coming down the pipeline that might impact state businesses, but just really having more involved committee members and community members that might bring, if there's concerns that anybody has about policies, local or regional or statewide, to bring those to our chamber if you're a chamber member here in our area, or there are other organizations. Speak to your legislators. I think a lot of people just don't realize, especially here in Maine, how open and willing at least our legislators here in the Mid-Coast that I've dealt with are, and how engaged they are, and how interested they are in hearing from the constituents in their districts, whether you agree or don't agree. I've had really good support from a lot of local legislators, and I would encourage anybody to reach out to them if you have questions or concerns as well.
I think that's so important, that business owners, you have a voice. To all of, anyone that's listening that's out there, you have a voice, and is to get more involved and to understand or to share your perspective, and hopefully there could be some two-way dialogues, and you found that, like, they'll have a great conversation with you and be able to give you maybe some more understanding, or maybe you can really be passionate and just share your feedback, and I hopefully you're right, they're going to continue to listen, and we'll see some changes in this next session, because I will tell you, I think a lot of businesses feel like they're being attacked right now in the state, and we already have enough in our economy that makes it really, really difficult, right? So housing, especially for employees, like there's a lot going on. So let's talk a little bit more about the housing too, some of the things that you've been working on.
Yes, I think being a housing crisis in the Mid-Coast and across much of the country, nobody's surprised by that. That's kind of an ongoing dialogue in our area, in our state, and across the country. So, but I feel like here in the Mid-Coast, that issue is exacerbated a little bit more, given that a lot of jobs and a lot of employees have to travel down, whether it's the St. George Peninsula or the Booth Bay Peninsula or Cushing. Anybody coming from the towns here, Rockland, Camden, Union, have to commute 30, 40 an hour to get to a job. So the average commute for one-way commuting time in the state is about 24 minutes. Knox County, we're a little lower than that. Lincoln and Waldo County are a little higher than that, but trying to create a place and housing in our area that allows my staff and your staff to have reasonable commute times, to be able to afford to live in the area where they're working and not have to continue to travel further and further away to find affordable housing is really important to me, and I think really needs to be pushed in our community a little more than it is.
Yeah, and I know that that you were very involved with a project to try to open up some of that, and there was a vote on that last year that didn't pass, but you and that team didn't give up and said we want to move forward with this. And so talk about what you did next to really move that forward, and tell us a little bit about that project.
Yeah. So the St. George Community Development Corporation is a nonprofit. It is not part of the St. George town. The CDC runs an ad hoc housing committee. Again, not directly part of the town, but we work with the select board, planning board, and the town manager, Brandon, often to share ideas and ways that we can help housing on the St. George Peninsula. The project you mentioned last year, we had about 2 years of work into a project on Kenny Woods Road in St. George that the town has owned for many years. That's sitting there unused, not collecting tax revenue. It's about a 70-acre parcel that the CDC was hoping to ask the town to donate about 8 to 10 acres of at a maximum in order to start to create some affordable housing. And I think there's a big misconception in a lot of people's vocabulary with the difference between affordable and workforce housing, which is important to distinguish. The operational definition of workforce housing is housing that the average person can sustain if they are making between 80 and 120% of the median income for Knox County, or any given county for that matter, where affordable is generally below 80% of the AMI, and that includes some of the state-run programs that help people with their rent. So when there's conversations in local or state level regarding workforce housing, these are our everyday, our neighbors, these are our staff, these are your restaurant workers, these are the people checking you out at the grocery store, these are the people in our community that need to live and work here to support our businesses. So that's really, really important. Right now for Knox County, the area median income is about $58,200, which means there are about so an affordable 2-bedroom apartment rent would be between 80% of Knox County AMI is $1,164 a month up to $1,700 a month. And as we know, in this area, those rents are hard to come by. So that puts a lot of pressure on renters in the area who are spending more than 30 to 35% of their income on rent, which makes the rest of their lives a lot more stressful and a lot harder to save for the future, maybe save to buy a home, and really to kind of break that cycle.
Mm-hmm. So you and Lauren have come up with a very creative way to be able to do that for your employees, and not everyone can do this, but it's pretty impressive what you've done for your employees. And can you share a little bit about what you've done to do that?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. It's fortunately, Lauren and I have the resources, and we have the operational business that allowed us to purchase, over the last 3 years, we purchased 3 multifamily housing units in Rockland. So we have 10 apartments. 8 of those apartments are currently at or below 80% of that AMI. So we're able to provide housing not only for our staff, but a couple of lobstermen and their families that live in our properties, a nurse, and several of our staff as well that that benefit from being able to live their lives without the burden of a rent that is above market value.
So I'm just going to ask you this because you're able to do that, and you've purchased these things recently, and and I'm sure you probably bought them at a premium, where other landlords in the area bought them a long time ago or before all this madness with the pricing increase and all that, but you're able to do that and still afford to be able to make it affordable for your employees. So how do you balance that, and how do you create that messaging to other landlords that are out there on creating this balance of profitability and affordability for their tenants?
Well, we've been fortunate to partner with the Genesis Fund, who is a nonprofit in the Mid-Coast that is dedicated to creating and maintaining workforce housing in the community, in the Mid-Coast and in the state. So with their partnership, we have been able to get into some of these properties with maybe a little bit lower interest rate or a little bit less cash up front, which helps considerably, being able to keep those rents at a lower market rate. And also, to be honest with you, we don't operate those at much of a margin. We've got the hotel and restaurant are our main business.
Right.
So these properties, we've done some renovations to, and we've put new roofs on and different things like that. We want the properties to be safe, yet affordable, and we're fortunate to be in a position that we can do that.
That's impressive. What are some of the other things that you're doing, for that St. George Peninsula, and some of the other things that you're doing for this region? Like, is there, let's dive into a little bit more.
Yeah, so I always tell people that we bought the business, again, less than 24 hours after visiting it. We knew the business on paper was profitable. We knew that we had a lot of room to grow, but we had no idea the kind of community that we were getting into, and just the support from the community, from our neighbors, from this area, especially to be able to support us and keep us open year round and keep our staff employed year round, has inspired me to get more involved with the town of St. George. Last night we had a budget committee meeting where we reviewed the first quarter of the St. George annual budget, which, if anybody's listening in St. George, we could use a couple more committee members for the budget committee. Additionally, on our comprehensive planning committee, which until I got a little more involved with the town, is kind of a new concept to me. And I don't know if a lot of people in the area or in the state know that each town is required to have a comprehensive plan that outlines essentially the future of the town for the next 5 to 10 years, what the select board should be working towards and what the town manager should be working towards, the goals as identified by that committee and the community that they live in. So that's about a 2-year process, which will have that plan ready for the voters of St. George in May to vote and approve on. And so that's been really interesting to engage with other shareholders and stakeholders in the community, our working waterfront community, our business community, and several other seasonal and year-round residents to kind of get input and understand what our community means to each individual and as a collaborative for the town.
And you're doing this, running a beautiful inn, beautiful restaurant, being on it's impressive, Greg. I'll just tell you that right now.
Thank you.
But I being a St. George resident as well, I'll tell you, I appreciate the outreach that you and that committee have done. It's so important to be able to get the feedback and be able to get the information that's out there, which is awesome. Tell me, why should more business owners or leaders in our community be more involved? Like, what drove you to get involved in the chamber? Like, what really made you say, you know what, I don't work enough, so I'm gonna join the board for the chamber, which is obviously you have to be voted in, and that was an easy victory for you for sure. And you've been very impactful. So, like, what drove you to say, I want to do more? Like, and how And what can you say to other people to do the same thing?
Well, speaking of not working enough, I recently took on a job helping a friend of mine, Krista, run her oyster farm, Aphrodite Oysters, which
What the
has
heck?
actually been really kind of enjoyable and rewarding to me. A couple mornings a week, I get out there at 5 or 6 or 7 a.m. and just kind of watch the sunrise and kind of do whatever needs to be done on the farm, and I can kind of get back to my real life and running the business a little more refreshed and kind of a little less stressed. So it's nice occasionally to not be the boss and to have somebody tell me what to do. But kind of circling back to the chamber, just kind of like I said a few years ago, we started, actually the first month we owned the inn. We attended a chamber business after hours at Downeast Magazine's office there, which was a little nerve-wracking and not knowing anybody coming in there as the new guys. But there's a lot of good people involved in the chamber, and I wanted to be a part of that and to be able to support our business community in the area.
I remember that night. I remember being there with MJ and Fletcher, and really that's when I got to know them really well, and that was a great night because this business after hours, you get to interact and get to meet people, because people don't realize those business after hours isn't just for the free beer and wine and snacks. It's actually a great place to build friendships, partnerships, and draw you in. And so you went onto the board. What made you want to do that? Like, what made you say, you know what, I want to join the Penn Bay board?
There was, I think, oh yeah, a couple years ago, there was some new legislation coming out just as I was kind of getting involved with the Hospitality Maine's Legislative Advocacy Committee, that I was reaching out to the chamber as a business member and trying to get the chamber to have a voice in this conversation. And at the time, it was not something that the chamber really did. So I was left that conversation and interaction a little frustrated with the chamber. So it was, I thought it would be great for me to kind of get in there and have my own voice and be a part of the conversation and how the chamber leadership and the chamber future is shaped, as well as how that impacts our community.
Mm. But you didn't quit on that subject. You said, no, I'm not gonna let this pass. And so you got involved and you started doing some committee work, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I remember right, you were on a committee for the chamber, so you started to get more and more involved, and then you successfully came onto the board and made an immediate impact. And so what are some of the legislation that you've been working on or just sharing, and just I know you've been really involved, so I'll let you kind of take the lead on how you want to do that.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that business owners in our community and anybody who works in the state should be aware of is some new paid family medical leave legislation that's has already passed the legislature. The statute is written, but the rulemaking is ongoing right now. It has the potential to really impact Maine businesses and their staff. Starting January 1st, each employer is required to start putting 0.5% of their payroll into this state-run account. And then a little bit down the road, each employee is then going to have to start taking 0.5% of all of their wages to add to this account, and which I think paid family medical leave is a great program and is really beneficial to people working in the state and in the country. But the way this bill is written is the least employer friendly in the country. It's got some provisions that look like they're counteracting the actual statute the way it was written and could pose a problem to business owners and their employees moving forward. So I've taken a little bit of lead from the Maine State Chamber. Patrick and his team there have done some really great work informing the public and informing business owners what's coming down the pipeline, but also how they can help to potentially influence that to make the policy a little more even as far as that connection between staff and employers. So I think anybody who isn't aware of what's going on there, the State Chamber website has a lot of great information. Maine's Paid Family Medical Leave website has a lot of great information as well. So definitely encourage you to look into that, and again, have a conversation with your local legislator about any concerns or questions you might have.
I would say is that I am so impressed with the new leadership with Patrick and his team at the State Chamber and how involved. I've never seen I mean, I know the previous CEO did a great job, but he's really jumped right in and started, and I love the networking, amongst the chambers and bringing them all together, but also that connective tissue is our board members like you that are going to Augusta, advocating for our local chamber, advocating for small businesses and all that, but also too some of that legislation that that you had brought a lot of information, not legislation, but it was in regards to the retirement plan. And you, like, listen, I think you're the poster child, you and Lauren, because you were, I mean, you were out there, being, almost you are subject matter experts in regards to this retirement plan. And I would love to have you talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, I think that plan is a great plan for the state and for employees to start saving for retirement. It was one of the first plans in the nation, one of the first states to start requiring every employer in the state that has, I think it's more than 3 employees, to provide access to this plan or their own private plan. The state-run plan is pretty interesting in the way that all employees are automatically enrolled in the plan, which I think is a great opportunity to kind of nudge the staff and your employees to start putting a couple of percent of their paycheck into a retirement fund that they'll have access to, whether they stay in Maine the rest of their lives or move out of the area. It'll always be there for them. They can transfer it. The Merit staff has some good information. They're always there to help. There are a couple of different funds that you can actually switch your investment into, whether that's something that is a little more or a little less risk averse, which is really interesting that the fund offers that for the employees of the state. In addition to, we were one of the first employers to kind of test out as a pilot program a few months before the plan went live to the rest of the state. So that was really interesting, kind of talking with and working with the merit director there to get our staff signed up early enough to start saving money a little sooner. And we know that the majority of our staff are utilizing the program. Some of our staff have opted out of it, which everybody has the right to do.
Sure.
Just a couple of clicks or a phone call. Some of our staff have opted out who may have other retirement accounts and or kind of doing things on their own. But it's been really great to see some of our staff start those savings.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. Now, going back to the paid family leave, there's going to be some stuff that's coming up, right? That the chamber is working on. We don't really have the dates as of yet, but can you share a little bit about some of the things the chamber is doing to help with some of the awareness?
Yeah, we've already done one kind of informational leader, listening session, and we're planning to do another once this final round of rulemaking is completed, to do our best to help educate and inform our chamber members and the employers in our area how they can make sure they're in compliance with this very complicated program. As you know, as small business owners, we're not accountants. We're business owners. We want to run the business. I want to run a restaurant and a hotel. I don't have the legal expertise or the accounting expertise to always make sure we've dotted our T's and crossed our I's on these programs that are coming out from the state, especially something as complicated as this,
Mm-hmm.
that if the employer is found to be in fault of, could have serious ramifications through no deliberate action of our own. If something isn't inputted right, or if somebody's not offered the leave the way the statute outlines, or something along those lines, the employer stands to face some pretty big challenges.
It's impressive. And this just shows the power of, your knowledge that you're sharing today. That's from you getting involved. You could just silo yourself with your business and just work your tail off and do some of these other exciting things, but you're rolling up your sleeves and you're joining the board. You're running this advocacy committee. You're the chair for it. And I'll just say, being a fellow board member, it's very impactful, and we appreciate all the work that you're doing. And what have been some of the joys of being on the board? And I'm doing this because I got to plug the board, because I'll talk about that in a second. But why should others join a board like the chamber?
Like you said earlier, it's we're all busy. We're all working to support our own businesses and have our own families and our own obligations. But I really think it's important, not only for the chamber as business owners, but also community members in their town government and in their town volunteer positions, to be able to have your voice out there and know what impacts your business and your staff, and how the larger groups in our community and in our state can help with those challenges.
Yeah, and I would just say it has been one of the most rewarding things I've ever had the opportunity to do. I'm in my second term myself, and I would just say is that right now I'm the vice chair, and we currently have 4 board spots open. So through next Tuesday, you have the opportunity to submit. So if you're listening and you would like to be more involved, I really encourage you, if you are a chamber member, that you should, or if you're not, you should join the chamber, become involved. And then also there's a very easy way for you to put in basically your nomination, or if you know someone that would be a great advocate for your industry, talk to them and have them do the same thing. But I would just say is that we have 4 board openings right now, 4 board director openings, and I would really encourage anyone that's out there that would like to get more involved. It's a great way to be able to do that. Now, the man of the hour is Greg here, so we're going to talk a little bit about some accolades. Now, listen, I put out a post and talk about the excitement about this mystery guest, and I couldn't listen. I'm terrible. I'm the guy that I have a surprise present, but I'm gonna give it to you like 3 days before I should. I can't hold surprises very well, so so I introduced you to our viewers yesterday. Basically, just kind of talk about who you are and what you bring to the table and all of your accolades, and I think that I only just touched a little bit. So I want to talk about some of these awards that you and Lauren have been receiving. What was the first one?
Well, as you know, I'm not generally one to toot my own horn. No, I take that back. We are.
I was like, what?
Actually, the first, we've been fortunate to get some recognition from our local community as well as state-run organizations, and it's I think it means a lot to Lauren and I to be able to put all of our efforts and our blood, sweat, and tears into a business that is part of our community. So the first thing we were recognized with was from the Penn Bay Chamber before I was on the board as 2022 Small Business of the Year Award, which was really surprising to us and really meant a lot to see that even earlier on in our journey, what we were doing was impactful in the community.
And that was through the Penn Bay Chamber?
That was, yep.
Yeah, that was an award. Awesome. Fantastic.
And
you had some that was like environmental, right?
So we really, a huge honor from the Maine Office of Tourism. Earlier this year, we were recognized as one of only a handful of awards that the Office of Tourism does annually as for growth and leadership, which really was fantastic to be recognized at that high level and be kind of a voice on a larger scale.
Yeah.
We the last 2 years have been recognized by Downeast Magazine's readers and voters as the best bed and breakfast in Maine, which is really cool.
I mean, what was your competition in that pool? And I know that one of our fellow board members, I don't know if Michelle's listening today, was like right there with you at the end, right? I mean, it was
was
we're
neck
all
and neck
friends.
there, and
We're all friends,
yeah.
and friendly competition, I'm sure. So that's a really cool honor. But how many submissions were there?
I don't know how many there were across the state. Downeast Magazine narrows it down to 5 finalists
Okay.
For the final round of voting, which Matt and Michelle do an incredible job running the Blue Harbor House Inn in Camden. Really love them as part of their community and excellent people. So it's been kind of fun the last couple of years to have that friendly competition.
Sure. And that is a prestigious, that is a very good magazine, and for you to get that award not once but 2 times is very impressive. So that's really, really cool.
Thank you.
What's your vision for the future of the inn and for the restaurant? Like, you got a beautiful spot there, but you're surrounded by a beautiful community. You got some great neighbors. I'm just saying, but like, how, what's next? Like, how do you keep growing or perfecting this when I think it's really, really good as it is? Like, how do you do that, or what's your vision?
Well, we know we can always learn more. We can always do better. We can work with our staff. We can, we always want to continue to rise and provide a great experience for our hotel and restaurant guests, whether they're local or coming from out of the country. So we can, we just want to keep striving to do the little things we can to make sure everybody feels at home and feels welcome. Most people, may not realize this, that come into the restaurant on a regular basis or at all, that Lauren and I actually live on the property. So I think it's easy for a lot of employers, especially large employers, to say they want their team to feel like a family. But Lauren and I really mean that, as anybody who comes into the building, whether they're working for us or whether they're coming for dinner, is in our home. So we want to extend that outside of our own doors to the rest of the building and to everyone who walks in to feel comfortable. We want the restaurant to have incredible service and be able to serve up some excellent food in a casual and welcoming environment that allows our guests to just really relax and have a good time and enjoy.
And also, I mean, you have your art. You have art showcased in there all the time, which is a really cool thing. And so just talk briefly about that too. So you have this whole thing going on in your inn as well.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, one of our neighbors, who's an incredibly distinguished artist and art advocate in the community, mentioned to us what kind of one of our spaces would make a nice gallery, which at the time we thought was going to be a ton of work, and kind of dismissed the idea. But over a little more time, we thought that we'd like that idea, and it. In addition to creating a new revenue stream for a business that really is kind of pigeonholed in ways that can generate income and support the business, it's been really great to be able to offer, to be able to support the artists in our community with almost up to $50,000 in annual sales for that artwork. And I think there's a lot of businesses and restaurants and hotels that have artwork hanging on the wall, but with the input and influence from a few of the other local artists, including Catherine Cartwright, who curates the gallery for us, we were able to build an art gallery that happens to have some dining room tables in it. It was very deliberate in how we wanted to build out the space and set the lighting and set the hanging of the artwork, that I think it's made a difference.
It's awesome. And you're a year-round restaurant, so so you do that, which is amazing. And just telling me from a guest perspective, sitting in that section that you have the art gallery, and when you have the wood fire going, all right, there is nothing like it. All right, and delicious food, bacon wrapped dates, all right, are just ridiculous. It's not fair. Okay. By the way, a must have if you go there. I hope that you continue to have that on the menu, because it is awesome.
I think Chef Gill is planning to keep that on for the winter. Yes.
That's fantastic. Good. Greg, just for the next segment is talk about this life-work balance. We've talked about this, and I mean, listen, I don't know how you can have any more balance because, I mean, you're doing all these things, your advocacy impact at both the St. George level, state level, the chamber level, all these other things that you're doing, which is just so impressive. You are also, I can't swear on the show, but you're definitely a bad, you know what, when it comes to just for yourself, like you're an athlete. I mean, listen, I've seen you jump right into the ocean, all right, and you're out there swimming. You love to swim in the ocean, but also too, you actually used to be an marathon guy, like, which is what is a ultra marathon? Because I remember you telling me, and it just sounds like gross. But tell us, what is an ultra marathon?
So that's basically running anything further than the traditional 26.2 mile marathon, which is the standard distance across every marathon in the world. So running further than that, standard distances are 50 kilometers, which is about 31 miles, 50 miles, 100 miles or longer. So I was at an elite competitive level, generally focusing on 100-mile races or longer.
100 miles. 100 miles, that is just insane. So to be able to do that, I know that you've made some lifestyle changes as well. So can you talk about that journey as well?
Yeah, I think Lauren and I actually met a little over 10 years ago in the racing and running and triathlon community in Boston. So that was something we were able to do together and have a good community around us in Boston and New England. Being a part of, I helped to grow and help a friend of mine create Zoom Multisport, which is the largest triathlon community in the Boston area now. Lauren actually was part of the team before I was. We were some of the original, I think maybe 8 or 10 members. Now the club has over 100 members.
Wow.
So it's been interesting. I call myself a retired runner. I was always motivated more by the competition aspect of it. I would train 130 to 150 miles a week on average, running in addition to my full-time job as a portfolio manager, which had night meetings and all kinds of not fun stuff. But to be able to take that drive into the Craignair Inn and the Causeway restaurant and to kind of transition that into doing the best we can for the business and for the community. Lauren still gets out and runs a bit more than I do, but I've been able to enjoy some more golf and a little more other aspects of life that
you love to kayak.
Love
and
getting out on the kayak.
Most beautiful place to be able to do that. You love to bike.
Yeah, so it's just our community offers a lot of great places to do those activities. There's incredible running and mountain biking trails in Camden and Thomaston. We can hop right out our front lawn into the water and kayak around some beautiful islands in the Wheeler Bay, Penobscot Bay area, and just there's a lot of people in this area that are volunteering and working for nonprofits that want to create those spaces for us.
That's amazing. And just in closing, Greg, I always like to ask, what would you say to the younger you? What guidance would you give yourself again?
I think being a little more open to change as I was younger and kind of coming through, a little more stubborn, a little more hard-headed as to being open to new ideas and being a part of the different groups. Now the last couple of years has really kind of opened my mindset to being receptive and communicative and new ideas and new ways to look at business and look at the community and look at everything we're doing.
It's so impressive, and I love hearing your story, and I think we could all give ourselves that feedback sometimes, but that's a great reflection. So where can people learn more about all these different things? So how can they learn more about the Causeway and the Craignair?
Yeah, so we can go to one common misconception is because it's called the Craignair. Often I'm called Craig instead of Greg, but the Craignair is a small town in Scotland where a lot of, in the early 20th century in our community, there's a large history of granite quarrying, which was done a lot by the Scottish and Finnish immigrants who moved into the area for work. So there was a group of Scottish quarry workers working off of Clark Island Road that built the Craignair Inn and kind of named it after the area where they were from. So that name just kind of goes back to the history of the building, and that was one of the things that really attracted us to the property when we were looking to purchase. So Craignair, CRAIGNAIR.com is our primary website.
Okay.
We've got some great information there on the restaurant, a lot of events we're doing through the winter. We do monthly themed pairing dinners that are a lot of fun and always sell out. A lot of the same guests come in every month, and it's great for us to see, everybody know each other in the room and having a good time and relaxing in the middle of winter when there's not that much to do.
That's awesome. Well, what we'll do is that I'll get some links from you, and then we'll post it in another post on our page, the Rock Coast Entrepreneurs Facebook page, so that way people can get involved, especially if you live in the St. George Peninsula, in that area, about how to learn more about these different committees that you're working on, learn more about this project for affordable housing. Education is key. To get involved is a great way to be more educated, and not necessarily from postcards, but we won't go into that. But it's really important for people to get involved, and so we'll share some stuff about that. And also, as I wrap up, thank you to our listeners and everyone that's also watching us online, or listening to us online, as well as our Facebook. Sorry, the live isn't working, so I'll upload the video here shortly. But thank you very much for listening. And also, I just want to say thank you. Adam Lockman, one of our listeners, also one of the city councilors for Rockland, gave some great feedback. And listen, I'm a business person, okay? I'm not a radio person, but this is turning into a passion of mine, and I love doing this. And the Rock Coast Entrepreneurs loves having this platform. And I would just say, continue to share the feedback. We'd love to hear it. And yes, eventually we will take calls. Yes, we're probably going to expand the hours of this so that way we can do that. I'm going to have some instructions next week, and we're going to have some really good feedback implemented next week. So Adam, thank you very much. And everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. 93.3 WRFR, as well as streaming online, WRFR.org. We'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.